Some 25 minutes after 7. Sister Debbie there talking to Gladys Oseo Radio. And we hope that you enjoyed every bit of that one. There's more to come every weekday here on the show, on the AM show. Right now, I'm talking water and I'm talking forests. Two things that apparently go hand in hand. And over the weekend, we celebrated two things: World Water Day and World Forest Day as well. My guest will tell us a bit more about that. Samuel Mensah Mauto is with Civic Response, and Jacqueline Kumado is my other guest here on the show. So good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Okay, so first of all, Jacqueline, where's your where's the your NGO again? What's the name of your NGO?
Arusha, Ghana.
Arusha, Ghana.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're here on a ticket of a coalition. The reason the two of you are together.
Yes.
Okay.
We are here on the ticket of CONAMA, which is a coalition of NGOs against mining of Etiwa. And Etiwa is a forest reserve in the eastern region that holds the headwaters of Densu, Birim, and Ayensu. And Densu is the river that supplies Wager with water. So we realized that our forests and our water are linked.
Okay. So the forests, water are linked.
Yes.
Okay. But let me talk to you, Sam. We have how is the forestry like? Because we always hear the talks that we should preserve and take care of the forests. If it depletes, when the last tree dies, we've been told when the last tree dies, the last person dies, that kind of thing. Is it just a talk? Are we taking care of our forests? How does it look like now?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to the viewers once again. I think in the past we've made effort to protect our forests. I think in recent times we're not really doing well. And it's not just Ghana, it's global. I mean, every year we're losing about 35,000 hectares of forest. Is it per minute or something? I mean, the forest statistics of how much we're losing is serious, it's staggering. And we are losing forests to social development, we're losing forest to infrastructure. And the interesting things these days are that we're losing forests to oil palm, we're losing forest to soya. All these things that we consume on a daily basis, paper, we're losing them
To charcoal.
forest. Charcoal among them. So yes, on the global scale, that is a challenge with forests. Now, when you look at Ghana, most of our forest reserves, they are usually named after water bodies because when they were constituted, one of the original intentions was to protect the headwaters of the various waters which are found there. So you look at Free Headwaters is in the western region. All these forests are even named after the water bodies in which they take their source from. So it's very, very crucial that we protect forests, not just for the aesthetic beauty, not just for the trees in them, but because I mean, essentially trees give us life. I mean, I'm normally worried when people say when the last tree dies, the last man dies. It also presupposes that as every tree dies, another man dies, or as a man dies, the tree dies. So by the time we get to the last tree, hell, everybody is dead. And that is frightening. But we as a country, I think we need to do much, much more when it comes to protecting forests. Ban Ki-moon, in his statement on the World Forest Day, simply makes the point that we need to invest more in protecting forests. He's calling for innovation. He's calling for resources to be invested. And I think these are essential elements that if Ghana, we need to protect our forests, we need to go on that line. Invest more, ensure that people, stakeholders who have a role to play in protection of forests do that. And we are not doing that just for timber, as Jacqueline mentioned. It's for water, for the wildlife resources, for the ecology that forests provide. It's a whole range of benefits that we get from forests. So it's very, very important that we protect forests.
And I think that I want Jackie to also, because the link that you make between the Tiwa forests and the water that we get, if we have enough forest, why are we not getting enough water?
Thank you very much. The reason why we have challenges with our water bodies is because people exploit them and don't realize that the more you exploit your forest resources, then in one way or the other, you are likely to impact on the water resources. If you take Etiwa, for instance, the forest has water, it has other biodiversity, plants, animals that are very unique to the place. And Etiwa is quite unique because there are only two kinds of it in Ghana, which is the Guinea-Congolian forest zone. And we have the Tano of Fin, which is in the western region, which is degraded now and has been encroached and turned into farms. So if Etiwa is allowed to be degraded as well, then it means that we are not only going to lose the plants and animals, but also we are going to lose our water. And what is critical is that Etiwa is in the eastern region, but it applies people in Accra and its environs with water. So whatever happens there affects not only the people in the eastern region, but in Accra as well. And also at Etiwa, besides the cutting down of trees, there's a lot of illegal mining currently going on there. And so the more people mine, they pollute the water. If the headwaters are polluted, you realize that the water downstream is also polluted.
You know, the people who live in and around these areas, do they understand the usefulness of what they have, the extent to which it is servicing the whole country?
It's very interesting. You know, mostly when people live around the resource, they feel that it's their livelihood and they have to live based on the resource that they have. So they don't realize that whatever impacts they are causing on the water at Etiwa is affecting the people downstream, which is Accra. So what we are doing is to educate them. They know that the resource is there, they've always used it, but they don't realize the impacts of their actions on the people downstream. So we are educating them to protect the water, to stop cutting down the trees, and also educating people outside of the immediate environs of the resource. Because most people in Accra don't even know that their water comes from Etiwa. They only know it's Weija. But where does the water from Weija come from? It comes from Etiwa. So that's why it's important for people both near the resource and further away from the resource to know how important it is to act wisely so that we can protect the resources that we have, particularly our water.
So, you know, right now we're looking for water. I've been thinking as if, I don't know if I have a position in Ghana, but I've been thinking about the Akosombo Dam a lot. And I get worried. So that when it rains, like when it rained on Saturday, I was thinking, is it raining there as well? Where it is supposed to rain for the water to get into the dam, is it raining as well? Do we need more trees around places where we need water badly? Do we, Sam?
Yes, obviously that. But I think that there's more to that. It's one is that most of the trees which are protecting the sheds of banks of river are being logged. You log those trees off. I mean, those are very, very fine prime trees. God, they are good. You log them off, well, you get the benefit now, but everyone else will pay for the cost. And the cost is that the banks of the river will be dry. And as it dries along, well, you're just diminishing the ability of the water to produce enough. So that is one. The other point is that we can't also take for granted is the issue of climate change. I mean, our logging activities, all this pollution, I mean, things that we have done, well, when I talk about we being human beings, not necessarily those of us in the South or political South, we have contributed. But it's a global phenomenon. There's too much heat. Rains are not falling as frequently as they are coming. The whole cycle has shifted. So it means the quantum of water that we used to get in time past is not the same. So those are all some of those challenges which we have to deal with. Do we have to go and plant trees? Definitely, I think we need to do. We need to invest so much in tree planting to protect our water bodies and all that. But I think at the same time, we also need to start diversifying and look at other means of getting the best of what we need for our nature. Not just from nature, but for the things that we do. So for power generation, for instance, we cannot forever rely on Akosombo. I think at a certain point, maybe Akosombo should be just left for I think Bui is considered as a reserve power source or something. I think that's the same sense. So we need to diversify and look at other sources of energy generation, which are climate friendly, which are environment friendly. And yet, I mean, we have sunlight. I think it's an area that we need to go. And for NGOs like that campaign, like us that campaign for environment, people and all that. I mean, areas like solar generation is one interesting thing that we would always push for. It's cheap. I mean, in the long term, I mean, we have sunlight in abundance all through the year. So that if we're able to do all these things, we are shifting, or we are reducing the pressure we put on our water bodies and all that. And maybe just a quick question, a quick response to one of the points that Jackie was
made.
raised. Yes, I mean the threat to Atiwa is not only from the people around there. I mean, these Galamsey people who are doing those. I mean, we've always had Galamsey in Ghana. It's never been a problem until
But I think the
last 5 or 10.
scale, you know, now we're using heavy machinery.
Exactly, and our
So-
local people don't have money to buy heavy equipment. That's a fact. Most of these things are investments from outside, and those are the real challenges. So the challenge is coming from outside, people who don't live there, who don't really care much about the impact. I mean, we know a lot of Chinese. Well, we hear a lot of Chinese, and we see a lot of Chinese doing all these things.
Yeah, but
These
it's we are allowing them. For
Exactly.
instance, it's the chiefs and the people who own the land.
So it's a whole mess.
They're allowing, you know.
That's the point. That's the it's a whole mess. So people in the area are contributing to it in no small way. People from outside are also contributing hugely. But I think the other threat is that Atiwa has a lot of alumina, or how do you call it? Bauxites, exactly. And every government wants to mine it. So that's the biggest challenge, that if today we open up Atiwa and say, okay, let's go and mine the bauxite, well, there goes our water. And I think these are the realities that people in Accra need to come to terms with. If we say, oh, Atiwa is far away there, I mean, if we mine, it doesn't affect us. Well, it affects us more than we think. In California, I think last year they produced 40 million liters of water. No, 40 million gallons of water just to provide water for California. We can't afford that in Ghana. We can't afford that in Accra. So I think it's very, very important. It's a campaign for everybody. Let's protect Atiwa for all these reasons.
Okay, but I want you to give me alternatives. When you say no logging, Jackie, what else can we do? Because we know the importance of trees to other things we produce. The paper, we talk about the charcoal, not everybody can use gas, let's be real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are the alternatives?
Well, there are several alternatives that we can use. There are other resources that are less harmful if we use them. For instance, we can look at resources like bamboo. Bamboo is an alternative. There are new technologies that are coming up that with some little money we can always start, like briquettes charcoal, for instance. With that, you use agricultural waste. So when you have farmed and you have the waste on your farm, instead of allowing it to just rot away. Rotting away is good because it helps improve soil fertility, but sometimes most of it goes waste. So you can collect that, decarbonize it, and then use it to prepare charcoal, which one burns more slowly based on the technology that you use, and it doesn't allow you to cut down trees. And with the issue of paper, people in industry use a lot of paper. Sometimes people print stuff when they don't really need them, or you print out some piece of work and at the end of the day you don't need it again. You can just use it as scrap, so you don't have to buy new paper all the time. And those that can do paperless business, it's better to do paperless business than to always print if you don't really need to print. So there are ways in which we can reduce our consumption of forest resources, but people are just not adapting to it easily because change is difficult. So that's why we have to continue creating the awareness, talking to people, and making them aware of the realities on them.
So I get a sense that we're putting pressure on people who cut down trees. Because if we have a need for all these things you're talking about, then definitely they will need to cut a lot more trees down to produce the things that we as humans need, especially as Ghanaians, because we're talking about us.
Yes.
Okay. So how much more can we do to get trees getting us more water? Because right now it's water that we're thinking about. I'm not sure a lot of people made the connection between forests and water.
Maybe let me just quickly come in here. We are not necessarily opposed to logging. Let me put it that way. I mean, we need trees for a whole range of things, so it's good we cut down trees because we need them. I mean, there's no point in having a forest as and reserving it for no purpose and saying that we need trees and yet we won't cut. I mean, we're definitely going to use trees, but it's just a matter of how we manage them. I mean, we have over 90 forest reserves in Ghana. Several of them are degraded, simply because the exploitation of the trees, I mean, is way too much. The biggest, one of the challenges I see is that anybody who wants to invest in any of these land-based investments, they always want to go into forest reserves because those are areas which are rich, the ecology is good. And once you go there and plant your oil palm and all those things, you destroy the forest, you destroy the land. You're changing the land use. So that is a challenge. So if, one, we're going to ensure that we plant our degraded forests, that's a step we need to go. Some forests, I think they are so degraded to the extent that we just need to leave them, allow them to grow naturally, and then do some more planting so that they really get back to where they were. And then let's look at other areas which are not necessarily forests, that we can actually grow into forests. And that is the initiative that we need to look at. I think Ghana has a 25-year plantation strategy which is looking at improving wood supply and forest generally across the country. The challenge, however, is that it seems to be produce a lot of timber for the market rather than forest for all the other purposes that we need, including water. I mean, that's just a criticism of it. But the point here is that, I mean, we need to protect our forest reserves as they are, manage the logging, do what we can do. When it gets to a level that we think it's too much, I mean, regulators should know and say, no, we don't have to go anymore. We just need to leave it and protect it. And then let's go into all those other non-forest reserve areas and encourage people to plant trees. I think currently the new forest and wildlife policy provides a lot of incentive for communities who are living around forests to plant trees. They can own them and all that. So I think these are the kinds of incentives that we need to give local people. People who live there are the best people who can protect the resource. We create incentive for them, we create investments, and I think we'll be able to get them to be able to plant trees. When they plant them, it is us, generally the population, that will benefit generally from it. So that is how I will always try to link the two.
Okay. But Jackie, what's the coalition's plan going forward?
Going forward, the coalition aims at seeing the Etiwa Forest becoming a national park. Because
so your focus mainly is Etiwa, that's the coalition's focus?
Yes, the coalition's focus is on Etiwa. And our focus is to get it to become a national park. Because we realize that currently it's a forest reserve, but yet because of inadequate resources, inadequate personnel from the national regulatory body, which is supposed to protect and ensure that our forest and natural resource reserves are well managed, there's a lot of illegalities going on around Etiwa particularly. And so if it becomes a national park, then the protection would be enhanced, would now have more personnel on the ground, like other national parks across the country. You would have constant personnel who would go on patrols, who would do more education, who would ensure that the communities have a balanced benefit of the resources as they live near it, and also people outside. It can also generate economic benefits for the country. For instance, the Mole National Park, which is the biggest in Ghana, is in the savannah, but it provides a lot of benefits to the country economically. And so if we are able to develop other reserves, particularly Etiwa, for its water and its biodiversity, to become a national park, we will not only be protecting the trees and the animals, but would also be protecting the water. And in that case, we can ensure that the water is sustainable.
So what kind of support are you getting from government? Because that will be crucial.
At the moment, we have the Forestry Commission on board. We have the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources.
Do they agree with you?
Yes, they do agree with us. And what we actually need now is to get a legislative instrument out of it, because that gives us some legal backing to make it a national park. It's quite challenging at the moment, and it's a long process because you have to go through several stages of it, but we are working towards it, and we really do hope that everyone would support us. For this, the coalition has a website, which is www.saveetiwa.com.gh, and on that website we have information on how activities are being organized to foster the agenda of making it a national park. We also have a petition page where we are urging people to go on and sign the petition, and at the end of the day, it's people's voices telling the government to make it a national park so that we can save our water and save our forest as well. So I would urge everyone to go on it
to visit the site.
Yes, and sign the petition.
All right. But Sami, any objections from from anyone, because these Etiwa, I'm not sure Etiwa is standing on its own. There will be communities around it. Do they agree for this transformation to take place?
Then again, it's a lot of awareness that needs to be created. So people down there also need to understand the kind of benefits that they stand to gain from that move. Usually, our interest in natural resources just stick out from it. But let's also understand there's a way that we can take out and still leave the resources there. We always say you can't eat your cake and have it. So if the communities continue to take out from the resource, if everybody continues to take out, it gets to a point we have broken the back of the resource. Eventually we can't take anything out. So I think there's a lot of awareness creation, education that needs to go down to the communities. But I think one other big thing we also need to look at is the general population. I mean, we normally leave issues of trees and forests and natural resources to the tree huggers and the water lovers and all that. But I mean, if we understand that water is life and forests also give us water, it becomes an everyday issue for everyone. Everyone needs to be on board that campaign. And I think collectively we can be able to push to a level where we can get Atiwa to a level where it's well protected, well managed, communities get their due benefits and all that.
Have we tackled the fundamental problem though? Because it's one thing telling people not to sell their lands or allow people to encroach on their lands, allow galamseyers to come and do their thing on your land. But sometimes they need the money. Because I had a very sad story last week, when we dealt with water. We talked water last Friday. A story about a farmer who gave out his land for 2,000 Ghana cedis, 20 million, because he had to pay school fees, and then he needed some money as well. But now he has no farm now. He has the land, but it's not a farming land anymore. It's been destroyed totally. So how are we tackling that core problem? There is a problem. There's a fundamental problem. If we don't eliminate that, people will still go ahead and allow people to use their lands anyhow they want to.
Yes, we are very much aware of the fundamental problem, which links to poverty and the fact that people don't have enough jobs in the area. So what we are doing with support from the Netherlands government, and also in the past we've got some support from AG Leventis Foundation, is to provide the people there with some livelihood. So some people have been trained in rearing of grass cutter, in mushroom rearing, snail, and we've provided them with startups. So then they have something to live for. They grow the mushrooms and they rear the snails, they rear the grass cutter, they can sell it, make some money.
Is this something they love to do?
Yes, they do, because we don't work in isolation, we don't force things on people. When we meet with the communities, we ask them what they think they can do, and they chose these livelihood options. And these livelihood options are things that they also get from the forest. So it's not that you are completely taking what benefits they enjoy from the forest from them, but then they go to the forest to pick snails, to pick mushrooms, and to hunt for grass cutter and other wildlife. So we give them this. It makes up for them not going into the forest to cut down the trees or to hunt, but also it puts them on their guard, because they know that we are protecting the forest and yet we have something to live for. So this is one of the things that we are doing to help the people understand that they need to protect the forest, but also to keep their livelihood as well.
Okay. So Samuel, finally, do you have a certain timeline that the coalition is working with regards to what eventually you want to achieve with the park?
Timeline?
Yes, we
with
do.
With the reserve, I mean.
Yes, the process of getting it to a national park initially was stipulated for 5 years. But we know that with the changing seasons, anything can happen.
Which one is the changing season?
Well, change of government, change of positions. Maybe you have a minister who is in for the national park, is supporting your cause, but once the person moves on to another place, you need to start the whole process of, again, to explain to the new person why you need to enhance the protection of the site. And it keeps the wheel running without you achieving the objective. Yes. So we are really hoping and praying that we get the legislative instrument before next year ends. So that is our current timeline.
Okay.
Because we know that if there's a change in anything, it can slow down the process. And as much as possible, the longer it takes, the more damage that is made. If we wait till 5 years to get a national park, and by the time the national park is there, we don't have Etiwa anymore, or the water is destroyed, our objective is not really achieved. So we really hope that by the close of next year, we should have the national park status designated.
Okay, we'll be doing a follow-up to see how far you've gone with this.
Yes.
But thank you very much. The connection you've made this morning is really connecting with me. And I know that a lot of people watching are getting it by now.
Yes,
What's
I
the
hope
link
so.
between, forests and water? Really, really important. But thank you very much, Samuel.
Sure.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. And I hope that you've enjoyed every bit of this conversation. Now, women in Tandobori say they spend the best time of their day looking for water for the family when they're supposed to be engaged in other activities due to the non-availability of water in the area. The community has one borehole for the over 2,500 residents, which sometimes push them to an abandoned salted pond to compete with their animals for water. Here's our Upper West correspondent, Rafiq Salam. He traveled to the community and came through with his report.
Tandobori is predominantly a farming community situated about 50 kilometers from the district capital, Wuchang. It has a population of a little over 2,500 people. Residents lack potable water. Residents queue long hours only to get a basin of water. Anita Vitalis is a mother of 4 and has lived in this community all her life. She spoke about the difficulties involved in getting water manually from the borehole.
When we pump the water, we become tired and have chest pains. We have been fighting each other here because of this unyielding borehole, yet we won't get water to drink, likewise the animals.
The situation with manual pumping of water forced residents to resort to the old silted pond to compete with their animals. The water here is very dirty and brownish. The only antidote is for residents to use alum. 20-year-old Ampina Felicia said although they know the dangers involved in drinking from the silted pond, they have no option.
We know that the water is dirty. Animals drink from it and at worst defecate and urinate in the water. We have fears that there could be an epidemic. We are therefore pleading for help.
Some residents complain the water situation has affected their relationships with their husbands. Mensiela Piñena has been married for the past 10 years and has a daughter, but believes if the water situation changes, she will be able to deliver more babies.
The best time to be with your husband is during the early hours of the morning, and that is the time we go looking for water at the borehole. After wasting time there and unable to get water, you then proceed to the pond to compete with animals for water. You get back to the house very tired, and yet your husband wants to make love to you. Failure to accept his proposal usually ends in a fight between couples.
Having a basin of water in this community is very precious, as 22-year-old unemployed SHS graduate Bernard Doma expresses his frustration about the situation.
Getting water to drink is a problem, not to talk of using water for our home chores. Water, if you don't get water for the whole day, I don't think you can survive. But that's what we are now suffering from. Now the weather is very warm and very hot to the extent that if you don't get a cup of water for a day, you can't survive. But the borehole we are relying on, if you get a basin of water, it is very precious for you and your family that you manage in a special way that you don't want the water to finish. But if you finish, that's all for you. Maybe if your mother is not strong enough or your wife is not strong enough to go for the bowl and fight for water, it will be very difficult for you to get water.
Upper West Regional Director of the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, Walanyo Kojo Siabi, whose outfit drilled the only borehole in the community, spoke about plans they have for such communities.
What we are trying to do for all the projects that we have is make sure we mobile, even small, very tiny communities that do not have water supply, we are able to cover them to make sure that they don't fail, because they are the most deprived.
Meanwhile, the silted pond has now been awarded to contractors to be desalted and turned into a dam under the Ghana Social Opportunities Project. While they wait for the dam to be desalted, they have resolved not to take part in future elections in the country, as they say it's a waste of time, as re-echoed in the song they composed. Rafiq Salam's report from Tandambori in the Wa West district.